Okay. Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
I am doing fantastic today. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. It's nice to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And your book is called Escaping the, I'm going to say Dashia.
Dashia.
Dashia. Okay.
hmm
Okay. First of all, what is a Dashia?
So, a Dashia is basically a psychic vampire. The Kobe were bred as telepaths to help bridge the gap between the different races, and some of them went bad. And instead of using their abilities for good, they turned evil. And so, yeah, Dashia is basically a psychic vampire.
Psychic vampire. Okay. Is this a made up term or is this real?
Oh no, I've got hundreds of terms that I've made up for the Praxis cluster. It's its own little world, its own universe. And so, one of the biggest challenges with writing the book is getting the terms in there smoothly and not overloading the reader.
Is this your first book?
It is my first published
First
book. I
published book.
actually
Okay.
have five or six books sitting in the file cabinet, and another one that is coming out, no relation to the Praxis Cluster saga, that will be out in October. So it took me 30 years to finally get published, and now I will probably have two books a year coming out for the next 3 years.
What were you doing before you published this book?
So I'm a freelance editor. That's how I get my bread and butter, and that's how I support my writing habit. And I love being a freelance editor. I've helped several authors see their dream of getting traditionally published fulfilled, but I was always a bridesmaid and never a bride until, well, just this Tuesday.
Well, that's an interesting comparison, and it's accurate. So you were working in the industry for a long time, and then finally you said, you know what, I'm going to do this for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I applied what I'd learned from working with my clients to my own book. And it's amazing when you look at your own work from a professional standpoint instead of a heart and being so close to your baby, you can make a lot more better business decisions. And so I was lucky to get picked up by Black Rose Writing and finally get traditionally published because I'm just not one of the personality types that would do well self-publishing.
Well, it's a lot of work, and although you have a lot of control, I mean, it's good and bad. I've had these conversations with authors before, and it just depends. If it's not something you're comfortable with, it's probably not going to work out for you, right?
And that's what I tell my clients too. Some people, they are just geared and made for going the self-published route, and some authors aren't. And I knew enough about myself to know that I'm not.
Give us a little idea of kind of what genre this book falls into and sort of an overview of the story. Don't give it all away. We want people to buy the book.
No, it's a young adult science fiction, and it is about a young telepath who's been hiding on Earth, and her real mother shows up and kidnaps her back to the star cluster she's from and insists she takes her position in the family business, which happens to be their version of the mob. And she doesn't want to. So there is conflict right away.
Where did this story come from? What inspired it?
So I wrote the first draft of this book when I was the age of the protagonist, 15 years old. And it came from a place of loving the genre. I mean, I absolutely loved science fiction. And I wondered, what would it be like if a Star Wars styled universe actually existed? And then it was, well, what if I could go there? And then I made up the character Twyla, who was actually Twilight back then, before sparkling vampires. And I fed in some of my own feelings of being an outcast, an outsider. I was raised a Jehovah Witness and I was a science geek. So I didn't really fit in too well. And so I gave my protagonist kind of a build up even bigger reason for being an outcast by making her race illegal. It's been banned, and she has to deal with her own feelings about who she is and what she is. and decided to stay true to herself. And so it was kind of a message to myself.
Jehovah's Witness and Science Geek, that's like diametrically opposed
No, actually,
lifestyles.
it's the bizarre thing. It's really not.
It's
And
not?
most people didn't realize it.
Well, that's a conversation for another show, I think, because we'd go on for hours on that one, I'm sure. On your talking points, it says the impact Star Trek made. What was the Star Trek connection?
Oh, wow. So Star Trek was the only show in our house where my dad wouldn't make one of us kids sit next to the TV and channel check when commercials came on. And we would never know if we were going to get to watch all of a show because he had the channels changed. And so Star Trek, we got to watch all the way through as a family. And then we talked about some of the issues that get discussed. Star Trek had the first interracial kiss. The episode where the race was black on one side and white on the other.
I remember that one,
yeah. And that the two sides fought with each other over which side the black should be on. Really, it takes difficult subjects, science fiction in general, takes very difficult subject matters to discuss without a lot of emotion and puts it into a context where people are a lot more comfortable. As soon as you fictionalize it, it doesn't become as friction causing, and it makes it a lot easier to bring those issues to light.
So is Escaping the Dashia, is that racism is dealt with in this book in a fictionalized way?
It is, but almost in a reverse way. My character starts out hating her own race and being actually for its extinction and for its genocide because she thinks they're all evil like her own family. And then she has to realize it's not, and they're not. And so staying true to yourself also means learning to appreciate who you are and your uniqueness and the gifts that gives. And so my hope is anybody reading it, whether it's LGBTQ or minority, will feel the empowerment of it is okay to be different and appreciate that difference.
I think that's a great message. Is that going to be the continuing message if there's a book 2?
Oh, there is a book 2.
There is a
matter
book
of fact,
2.
this is the first in a trilogy.
Okay.
And the character growth over the trilogy is that message.
Another one on your talking points, how her spiritual journey aligns with her author journey. Did you have an epiphany of some kind?
Oh my gosh. So many times writing has been cathartic for me. And in this book, besides staying true to who you are, there's another theme, and that's doing the right thing even when it's really difficult. And so when there's been periods of my life where I've been facing really hard choices where you know what the right thing to do is, but the consequences make you doubt whether or not it's worth the price. When you say to yourself, what would my protagonist do? It makes it a little easier to put on that mantle and say, okay, no, this is what I've got to do. And when it comes to a spiritual journey, my protagonist also starts out not believing in anything beyond the here and now. She has no belief in the makers, the fates, God, Jehovah, Yahweh, anything. And over the course of the book, where she meets somebody who has a very deep faith, she gains an understanding that there does have to be something more, that there is more under heaven and earth that is dreamt of in our philosophy. And that was kind of my own journey.
We've got just a couple minutes left. I want to hit on one, maybe two more of these. Why writers should never publish their first draft.
If I could stand on a mountaintop as an editor and scream that, I would. I have seen so many great ideas and books with fabulous potential. And you can tell that the writer actually has something to say and has a gift for writing. And they go ahead and they publish their first book and shoot, or their first draft, and shoot themselves in the foot. So you don't want to do that for a myriad of reasons. But one is, after you've published it and you realize it sucks, you can't, as easy as people think, go back and fix that. That history is already out there.
All right.
And let's say you do rewrite it and it's fantastic, and you try taking it to agents and editors, most of them are not going to look at a book that was already self-published. The other reason is you hurt your own reputation as a writer. And people remember. And friends and family might buy the book and they might not give you an honest evaluation, but you're never going to break out and get honest, good reviews outside your social network. And the third reason, and this is selfish for my clients, is first drafts are inundating the self-published market and making readers skeptical, and you're damaging the industry. And you're harming authors who are actually trying to make a living and be professional with their publishing. And I don't say everybody should hire an editor. That's not what I'm saying. There are lots of ways to get feedback and improve your manuscript. And I'll get off my soapbox now.
Well, no, I'm happy to hear that. I think that's great information and advice for people that are considering self-publishing or getting into this business. What do you think it is? Do you think it's their ego that people just put out a first draft and go, okay, that's good? Or
I wish it
lack of
was.
experience? Or
Yeah, if it was ego, you could appeal to the damage done. What it normally is, and I run into this with a large portion of my clients, is that they feel this pressure and they're in a hurry. And it's like they're experiencing labor pains and they just want the baby out. And it's emotional, it's psychological. So what I say is, okay, you could have a C plus B minus book out now, or you could take a year and have an A plus book out. Which one do you want?
Yeah.
And that usually will make them, oh yeah, that's worth a year. And then they'll take the time to get feedback and to go back. But yeah, it's just this feeling of pressure. Now, there are times where because something is so time sensitive and so to do with current headlines, that yes, I understand the rush, but you can rush and still not publish your first draft.
Well, I think on that, we're going to have to wind this down. Thank you so much for coming on. The book is called Escaping the Dashia, and my guest is Rebecca Inch-Partridge. Do you have a website you want to give out?
I do. It's www.ripartridge.com. And so it's just my initials and last name. And I would love to have people check in and let me know what they think. I'm very interactive with readers.
Okay, and the book is out, has been released?
It is just as of the 14th, so it's a new baby,
just a couple
and I'm
days.
very excited. You can get it at online through Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. But if you want to support bookstores, and we don't want bookstores to die, you can also just order it at your favorite local bookstore.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you and talking to you. Best of luck with the book.
Thank you. It was so nice being here and nice meeting you. You have a great day, Douglas.